Thank you, Alicia, and thank you all for joining me today. This is really an exciting day for, I think, the museum industry and the digital asset management industry. It's something that we've been anyone who's worked in this space, we've all been craving this for so long because we know that there's such an important role for DAM in every organization, but particularly museums. I just think that to have an entire day focused on this topic has been really exciting. And then on top of that, I, for one, am really excited that we're having this particular session. You know, where should DAM fit in your museum's technology ecosystem? I can't tell you how many times I've spoken to representatives from museums over the years who are so well-intentioned in getting their first digital asset management system up and running. And they do just that, but it becomes just yet another silo within the organization, yet another system to go pull assets from. But unfortunately, that DAM system in many museums was just not connected to the larger ecosystem. So anytime you need an asset, you went to the DAM, you searched, and hopefully you found the asset you're looking for, you pulled it down, and then you uploaded it into something else, which kind of defeats the purpose and promise of what DAM can truly provide to many of your organizations. So today we're going to talk about the big picture. Where does your DAM fit in the entire ecosystem? And to do that today, we're going to give you 4 very different perspectives. So I'm going to start out from an analyst point of view, an industry analyst and consultant point of view. Then I'm going to turn it over to Shyam from the Royal Ontario Museum, who's going to give one practitioner view. And then I'm going to turn it over to Denise from the Rhode Island School of Design's Museum of Art, who's going to give her perspective from where she sits on her DAM journey. And then we're going to wrap up with Alina from Widen, who's going to give the DAM vendor point of view. So again, 4 very different perspectives, but all looking at this same challenge of where does DAM fit within your technology ecosystem. So without further ado, let's jump right into this today. And I'll start by giving you a little bit of background about me. My name is Jarrod Gingras. I'm the managing director and one of the analysts here at Real Story Group. My whole world is helping enterprises of all shapes and sizes select the right technology for what it is they're trying to do and make smart technology decisions. We've been doing this for about 20 years now. This is actually our 20th year. And you know, we like to say we're a bit of a non-traditional analyst firm. Some people call us the consumer reports of the marketing technology or digital asset management and a whole bunch of other areas space. And so I spend my life looking at what digital asset management systems can do, what constituent asset management systems can do. I mean, constituent relationship management systems can do, and collections management systems can do. We spend our lives looking at the marketplace and advising our clients as to where these potential technology vendors are a good fit, and maybe more importantly, where they're not such a good fit. So that's a little background. I mentioned I've had the privilege of working with companies of all shapes and sizes all around the world. You know, I think we've worked with, you know, some 4,000 companies in more than 60 different countries over the years. But I can honestly say some of my favorite projects have been those that I get to work with the glam sector, as it's become known, right? The galleries, the libraries, the archives, and the museums. And I think I like it so much because my whole life has been spent thinking about the digital world, and helping organizations make decisions that are right to creating optimal digital experiences. And then I get to talk to people from museums who spend much of their lives thinking about physical experiences in the context of a physical museum, and bridging that gap and having those conversations where physical meets digital. To me, that's the most fun that I've ever had in this space. And so some of the lessons that we've learned from that, you know, from working with a number of industry of organizations in the GLAM space, are really parallel, though, some of the lessons we've learned in outside of the GLAM space as well. You know, I think we can learn a lot from the enterprise world, and, you know, marketers and CPG companies and retail companies and manufacturing companies and media companies. There's so many lessons to be learned that we can apply to the museum world as well. You might think that your world is different, and it is different in some ways, but the challenges are still there. If you think, I like to boil it down to, we're all trying to create optimal, delightful experiences for anyone who interacts with our brand, our assets, our collection. no matter what touch point they come in and engage with us with. We want to create consistent experiences at every single touch point. And so here's an example of how many organizations are set up today. You know, and I think in the COVID world, I think many of you in the museum world have really, if you haven't been on this journey already, you've accelerated your journey to elevate your digital presence to some approximation of your physical presence, right? And some of you have been there for a while, but many of you had a long way to go. But COVID, I bet, sped things up, right? And so a lot of effort has been placed into these channels to create experiences in the digital world. So I'm thinking about your websites, your email, your social channels, right? And those are so prevalent in everyone's world today, but so much investment especially in the last year, has gone into, we need to improve our publishing to the web, we need to improve our marketing automation, we need to improve our publishing into social channels. And that's all well and good, and an important part about this, but I was really encouraged to hear the keynote speaker this morning talk about, you know, without the proper infrastructure, you're just building a house of cards. And I think many of you are experiencing that. And so what I'm suggesting to all of you is, and really challenge all of you to think about, what should that infrastructure look like? You know, below your web content management system, below your email and marketing automation tool, below your social publishing channels. What are the real foundational elements of your digital museum? And I'll argue that collections management is a critical piece. We've heard a bunch of sessions about that, because that's where you manage your location, your condition, your status of physical assets. I would argue that a basic building block and a foundational element is the data you know about your constituents, right? You know, your different segments, the people that you're trying to reach, whether you're reaching visitors, school teachers, donors, collectors, potential just buyers of art, or any other different type of segment that might be interested in your collection. And then at the core of everything, not surprising, is the topic of today, is digital asset management. You know, managing digital assets through a life cycle so that you can then use those digital assets in meaningful ways. So if you have your collection managed properly, if you have your constituents managed properly, and you have your digital assets managed properly, you've then in turn given your staff the tools, the building blocks to create optimal experiences at every different touch point. And I think that's really what we're trying to do today. So build that strong foundation, but don't create another silo. The key here is how do we then, once you have these pieces in place, how do we then stitch them together so that they're not operating in independent vacuums? How can we put them together? So that's my analyst point of view. This is kind of a reference model that you can use. Everyone's actual situation is going to look a little bit differently, but I think these are some of the big building blocks, the big foundational pieces that you should be considering as you look to build your stack of technologies that give your staff the tools to create the experiences that you'd like to create. So with that as an analyst perspective, I'm now going to pass it over to our first practitioner. Shyam is from the Royal Ontario Museum, and he's going to tell us about his DAM journey and where the Royal Ontario Museum is at today.
Thank you, Jarrod, and thank you everyone for joining us today. It's really exciting to be here. You know, when I was trying to think back across my time in this sector, in the GLAM sector, working with dams, it occurred to me that one of the first conferences I went to when I first joined this sector was a Henry Stewart conference on digital asset management, which I think was back in the antediluvian days of like 2008. So it's been a subject and a topic that I've been engaged with quite some time, and I'm really excited to be able to be with you here today. If we go to the next slide. Just a little bit about sort of my background in this sector. At the ROM, I am the Chief Digital Officer, and so my broad responsibility is looking at the overall digital strategy for the entire museum, not just the front of house type of public experiences, whether online or on site, that we support, but also the back of house infrastructure that supports those experiences, as well as the content creation of such, the photography of our collection, audio guide production, multimedia experiences, and the like. Prior to being at the ROM, I was at the Dallas Museum of Art for 4 years, where one of the things that I did there was to help run a 3-year project to digitize the museum's entire collection and publish that entire collection online, which in a way was also somewhat of a continuation of work that I had done previously at the Met, where my first job ever in museums back in 2006 was working on the Met's first implementation of their own DAM system and the subsequent first version of their online collection. So like I said, all of this is something that's been part of my journey from the beginning. And so anyway, we can go to the next slide. Oh, sorry. For those of you who are not familiar with the ROM is Canada's national museum. We're the largest museum in the country, at least in terms of visitation in a normal year. This past year has been anything but. So example, in fiscal year FY19, we had 1.4 million visitors, and we have a quite broad collection, over 13 million objects, which span art, culture, and nature. So unlike other places where I've worked, we have Asian art, for example, and then we have meteorites and dinosaur bones. So it's quite a broad collecting area with lots of nuances, which are, can be interesting to sort of explore. And as I said before, part of my responsibility there is to look at the museum's overall digital strategy with technology and how we can best bring all of the research and learning and digital content that we produce as part of our core mission to the public, and which increasingly, especially in the last year, has been almost entirely online. And so, Jarrod mentioned, I don't have a slide sort of indicating our deck or anything, I mean, our stack as it is right now. But as Jarrod mentioned, I really do believe that the foundational building blocks for this, the content, the collections management systems, your CRMs, and critically, the digital asset management systems are essential to be able to provide these types of experiences to the public. The projects that I mentioned previously, digitization of the DMA's collection, putting the Metropolitan Museums of Art's collection online, none of those things would have been achievable or would have happened in the way that they did if it wasn't for the fact that we had a digital asset management system that could stitch into the other platforms that we already had in place, as well as facilitate both the sort of internal access to that content, but also the publication of that content to our visitors. So I'm just echoing, I think, some of the points that Jarrod made in his introduction, that I really look at DAM as being a foundational building block to a whole raft of digital activities that any museum needs to undertake these days. And in order for that to be successful, as Jarrod said, it can't just stand alone. It can't just be a silo. There needs to be some level of integration, whether it's with your collections management system, whether it's with your website, et cetera, in order for it to be truly, to maximize the benefits. In terms of where we are specifically at the ROM right now, we were about to launch our first DAM last spring, which was somewhat interrupted with COVID. And now we're at the point where we're going to be launching a first version of it within the next month. And I think one of the things that we are looking to achieve with this first version of the DAM at the ROM is to coordinate what has previously been a very fragmented approach to the ways in which staff are able to identify and gather together a whole raft of the digital content that we've been producing for quite some time, and which has only increased exponentially in the last year as we've ramped up all of our digital outreach because of the pandemic. So it's an exciting time right now for us.
Great, thank you, Shyam. And I think that's a very interesting point. Not only are we accelerating our technology efforts, but we're just ramping up the amount of digital assets that we're producing. All of us are, right? Just because we're all so focused on creating those digital experiences now, more so than we ever have been in the past. So that's a great point. All right, next we're going to turn it over to Denise to give her introduction. You know, I said that our practitioners are at different stages of the DAM journey, but I know a little bit about Denise's situation, and actually you're in a fairly similar spot as Shyam describes as well, huh, Denise?
We are. Thank you. Hello, and thank you, Jarrod, and the Henry Stewart organizers for inviting me to speak today about our DAM's journey at the RISD Museum. As the Registrar for Collection Information and Digital Resources, I administer the museum's collection information system and oversee the digital asset management and the integration of these assets and information into the museum's larger operations. I have to ensure that the digital documentation on the collection meets appropriate management, legal, security, cataloging, publication, and preservation standards and requirements. Established in 1877 as part of a vibrant community, the RISD Museum stewards works of art representing diverse cultures from ancient time to the present. Because of our deep connection to the Rhode Island School of Design, one of the most highly regarded art schools in the country, we can offer a unique approach to experiencing art. Through gallery interpretations, talks, hands-on activities, workshops, the museum visitor not only observes significant objects of art and design, but they learn about the process and the techniques of making art from the hand and mind of an artist. This philosophy is the driving force behind our approach to our partnerships, our programming, and our exhibitions. And recently, we aspire to create an accessible and inclusive environment that fosters meaningful relationships across all communities. The RISD Museum is committed to working deliberately, consistently, and compassionately to confront racism and injustice in any forms. We are a mid-sized museum. We employ about 100 staff members, along with numerous docents, freelance artists, educators, and we serve only about 123 visitors annually. We hold roughly 100,000 objects in our comprehensive collection, and we also provide free digital images of our public domain works in the collection for any purpose. We obviously want our collection, our scholarship, and our interpretive content to be accessed, distributed, and reused by anyone. However, during COVID pandemic, we've been closed to the public since March of 2020. In the meantime, we've been offering online programming to the public free of charge, while opened to the on-campus RISD students, the faculty, and select staff during the fall and now continuing in the spring. We will and don't know quite when we'll be back open to the general public. But having said that, while we were closed, and what Jarrod has asked me to talk about today is our journey. So really, our journey began about 18 years ago when we made the transition from shooting film to direct digital capture. But that was a time when there were really no dams in the marketplace. So at that time, and still as it is today, our museum photographers are part of our registration department. And also at that initial time, we did have a collection management system that had the capacity to associate JPEG derivatives of our objects, our exhibitions, our conservation, photography, publications, and event records were in our system. So we quietly built a critical mass of high resolution, professionally shot digital files. And we introduced those files into the everyday work of our registrars, curators, and conservators and our art handlers, and then expanded it out to our educators, marketing staff, and graphic designers. Now, some 15 years later, having completed 2 previous migrations of our collection information system and the design and relaunch of our website on 3 different platforms, we are now once again taking on another migration of our collection information system. Funded largely in part by an IMLS Museum for America grant to build capacity and increase our public access. In this iteration, we are taking our most ambitious technology project to date, which will integrate select information from our three principal systems, utilizing the inherent strength and purpose of each system. Once committing to this concept, we have identified what information needs to be pushed or pulled between systems with the ultimate goal of assuring accuracy of information and reducing redundant work. These connections will be critical link between the public-facing object data and internal records. But in order to achieve this integration between all of our systems, they'll all be web-based platforms, which will offer more intuitive and flexible user interfaces and will streamline our targeted workflows. However, we needed a DAM system. So that's where we are today. We have started working. We are currently migrating our collection information system while we've started the selection and examination and exploration of DAM vendors. And so we've just completed that portion of our journey. And we have a lot of different things that we brought to the table before we even started. And largely they have to do with our concept integration. So one of the big things that we had to start with, even before we wrote the grant, was to determine where this information was going to come from, which system was going to provide which content, so that there would be no double entry of work. So we began with the collection information system, which is where we store all information about and on our collections. It's not just data. It's we see it much more than that, and it has all that needs to we need to know about the information that the object can tell us. An interpretation, our label copies, exhibitions, and publications are all centered in that one system. But what we had in that, because we were managing our digital assets in a network system over folders and directories, we've grown that system over 15 years to an absolutely unmanageable situation. We have to do all of our processing manually. We retrieve everything manually, but we built it on foundations that were always looking to the fact that we would have to migrate and merge these systems continuously. This doesn't stop each time. Like I said, this is my third collection management system migration, and the first one going to a web platform. So having said all that, then what was the DAM going to do? What it did for us and what will it do for us is provide the kinds of capabilities and functions that extend our data from our collection information system. You can't search images well in the collection information system. You can't group them and make PowerPoint projections. You can't get a big download a big TIFF file. So putting the digital asset management system in this ecosystem allows us to push all of the descriptive, collect information about and on our objects that we need to into the digital asset to keep that relationship. And then the digital asset management system maintains all of our technical or administrative and proprietary rights or whatever information about the asset. And one of the exciting projects we're going to be able to do with this new system is to start to introduce alt text, text searching and phrases and descriptions into our digital assets themselves. So we'll be able to expand our accessibility for hearing impaired or for visually impaired. So that's pretty exciting. So that's where we are today. This we'll see here, you go from the collection information system, you get the two-way bidirectional information, comes back and forth. We'll also be able to push content directly to the, without the asset, because the asset will always come from the digital asset management system. And I don't mean just that it's media, it's, we're doing document management there. We're anything that's a PDF, anything that's video, sound, recordings, all of that information. As you know, one of the things we are also doing is digitizing all of our old acquisition information to make that available. Because again, with the purpose of being able to transparently push out information about our collections, how we acquired them, where we got them from, and what they look like. And all the previous iterations of photography that we've ever had, any videos that the works have ever been in, all of this will be combined in this ecosystem with its capability to feed our website. We're currently doing that now directly between the collection information system and the website. However, it was kind of a shoestring synchronization process that really has taxed our servers and the connectivity between the two systems so that it doesn't drop content as it's sending it over nightly. So this particular Band-Aid that we have, because we were in a client server environment, a typical SQL backend database, we've had a lot of restrictions. Currently, no API. Without an API, you're just sort of chasing your tail and wasting, I think, wasting money and getting a lot of frustrations because you can't get that granularity of data that you need to the website as you would like it to go. The other thing we're thinking of is also pushing content back from the website into the collection information system, and primarily through our education department and our program and events, where they are building their output to the public in the collection, in the website, and then we'll get that directly put into and build the back end record in Museum Plus, in our collection management system, and then the DAM, all of the any kind of publishing information, flyers, brochures, printed matter, photography, whatever, would be in the DAM, but connected to that event record in Museum Plus. So it really is what we're conceiving this as really one system, and that each part of the system has to be able to share, just like we work. This is how we literally work. It's basically mirroring the way that we currently work as departments, because there's not an exhibition or certainly an exhibition or a publication that doesn't touch almost every aspect of our museum. So that's where we are.
And Denise, one thing that you and I have talked about quite a bit is, it's easy to display these arrows with, either a single way flow of information or a bi-directional way of flow of information. But we actually included this next slide to say, it's not that easy. It might be easy to have systems talk to each other, but there's a lot of metadata work that needs to happen in the background to get this to actually work.
Absolutely. It's all about the metadata. It's all about understanding your metadata, knowing where you want it, knowing how to use it in the best way, so that each system layers on their best feature, their best capacity to whatever part of the cycle we're in. And this is funny because we're only talking about mapping here 6 or 7 fields, and
right.
But I wasn't sure we wanted to go this granular, but these are the kinds of ways that you kind of make this all happen. So
this is real life. This is the way the rubber hits the road.
This is the practitioner right here.
Absolutely. All right, thank you, Denise.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we have Alina from Widen, who's going to give her perspective from a DAM vendor. And it's interesting, Alina, we actually had someone in the chat while Shyam and Denise were talking. They were saying, could we think about a collections management system like a PIM, like a product information management system in more of a product-centric organization, right? And because I know so many people in like the CPG and retail world think of how do they connect their DAM system with their PIM system. And it's actually not that different, right? I mean, it really is. In the museum world, your collection, your objects, those are your products, right? And I know that Widen has a long history in the manufacturing and CPG and retail sector, but recently you've been putting a lot more energy into the museum space as well. So, Alina, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jarrod. I work for Widen Enterprises. Widen is a marketing technology company headquartered here in Madison, Wisconsin, and in London in the UK. And we do offer software, so software as a service model for content management via DAM, marketing resource management, and product information management software. So I definitely agree. And once in a little bit, I'll kind of share our vision of where DAM fits into the wider museum and technology stack. Certainly, PIM is also just another way of exchanging information. So I absolutely agree on the interchangeability in a certain sense between a PIM and a collection management system. And yeah, overall, Widen offers services alongside those products that are more aligned. So things like strategic consulting or managed services. We work with organizations around the world. So we have customers really in a number of different industries. Like Jarrod mentioned, we have a long history in a couple of different spaces, but then a big segment of our customers are nonprofit organizations. And many of those are in the museum or cultural heritage space. Another group of customers that we also serve are corporate customers, but where their needs for them really come in more with their corporate archive. So the needs are quite similar. There are some of those organizations who have more of that multifaceted entertainment company that manages a really high volume of historic content. I work as a customer success manager, so I get to very hands-on consult. I come more from the sales side before that as well. And what we really see at Widen is that we have museums that come in and have maybe the fully fleshed out vision that Denise showed as well, that have a very detailed plan. Maybe they're moving off of a certain dam and looking for something in the cloud, or just looking for a change. But then others do come to us with no dam. So the first time kind of dam evaluation and buying experience oftentimes looks really different depending on the resources. So it's great to have organizations that come with that full technology vision and that full technology stack. But we're also mindful, we just had a wonderful organization join that really just has one person that wears many hats, is also responsible for them. So they look for a tool that can be integrated. However, they're also very realistic about what makes sense for their specific institution to really start. So it might be getting assets right out to constituents. So leading with the website integration, leading with social media management tools, more on that side. Whereas an organization that comes to us more looking at starting with the collection management piece, which is one of those most common integrations. I'd say website is probably the #1 integrations, because organizations of any size do have a desire. It's maybe a little more simple than when you get to the collection management, as I think we've seen, that gets a little deeper. But if you want to move to the next slide, Jarrod, I'll just show that quick too. So DAM overall, as you can see, sits very much at the center for us of your content technology ecosystem now, and it can develop its fullest potential there if it is integrated. I completely agree that that's the ideal state, where it does get integrated with other technology and sits really here at the center between where content gets created, so where content comes in, where photography comes in, and then where it gets distributed. We did see over the last year really so many more conversations coming around, well, how can we manage social media in a more robust way? We've seen more e-com use cases that we don't typically see as much in the nonprofit and especially in the museum space, just because different sources of income generation were explored by some of those that came to Widen. So it's been pretty exciting, but then you'll see too the collection management and then the constituent or the relationship management or the donor management tool, those more information focused tools sit kind of alongside them there.
Thank you, Alina. That was our introduction, to the different perspectives of the folks on the call today. We have a bunch of questions coming in. There are a few questions about, which vendor products that the RISD Museum is using and the ROM is using. But, as a rule here at Henry Stewart Conferences, we're going to keep it as vendor neutral as we can. So, but with that said, I'm sure Shyam and Denise would be happy to answer some of those questions if you email them directly after this session. So let's pause on that for now. So, questions that are coming in. There seems to be a little bit of confusion from some people because we're talking so much about collections management systems and dam systems. And for those that are new to this, it's really hard to like conceptualize, all right, what's the dividing line? You know, where should I draw the line between what goes in a dam and what goes in a collections management system? Because there is overlap, right? There are images in both potentially. There's data in both potentially, and as Denise said, we don't want double entry, but where do you draw the line? Maybe it'd be easiest for each of you to say, you know, what belongs in both, you know, in your world. And I know it's different answer for every organization, but in your world, Denise, just off the top of your head, you know, what commonalities from an image perspective will be in both systems, right, and data perspective?
Again, it's going back to this idea that each system has a strength, right? So the collection information system, although it can house and have associated digital assets to it, it has limitations and how you then be able to search specifically on images or gather them or prepare them like you would want to do on a folder that you would have created on your desktop. We can be in an environment within the digital asset system that gives us greater search capability for this kind of information. It's about the assets, not about their surrogates, right? So all the information of and on objects are coming from our collection system, and we push that content into the digital asset management system. So all that has to do is give us the functionality that it can have capability of having AI searching. You can tag it differently. You can associate it. You can have, so the educators can be in there. The social marketers can be in there. Our graphic designers will be using it. And our big thing was making sure it could connect to other kinds of software. So like, let's use this for example. We're a curator and we're going to plan an exhibition. So they normally work in the collection information system. They can gather their list, have that list then sent to the digital asset management system with those assets gathered. So then they can take it and put it into whatever, PowerPoint, whatever they're going to do with it, and then or save that list back. But we still have a representative image in the collection information system, but it's a small image. It's a small JPEG. If we're in the collection management system now with the new design, if there's going to be a link that will allow you to click, and that the dam will then deliver you at that point a high resolution TIFF that you can download if that's what you need. And the same as if the graphic designers are working in InDesign and they need a digital asset, they can go to the digital asset management system, which will carry with it all of the identifiable, what we used to call the tombstone information, the captioning and the crediting information, which will have been coming from the digital, our collection system, because the people who are responsible for that are the ones that are putting in that content. So what we try to do, it's like an orchestra, I think of it. Every person has a job and everybody's putting in different content. And we are just tying these all together so that we can create this environment that people can just be in where they're normally coming in. So like our graphic designers and our educators don't so much work in the collection information system, but they're always trying to gather assets and put things together and, you know, pull it and relate it to an exhibition. So all of that is all of the assets that are not in the data structure are being held in the digital asset management system. So we don't see it as two separate systems at all, really.
Right.
It's just using the best aspects of each.
I think that's a key point that people usually get to later in their journey. Denise, I'm thrilled to hear that you're already thinking about that. I know there's been a lot that's gone into that, but I think, you know, people cringe, and I heard in some other sessions people cringing about this idea of this, you know, all these different systems that people are gonna have to deal with. But at the end of the day, if you do it right, it can be seamless, right? And you can work within your environment. That's it.
Right. And we have to assure that one of the things we're trying to absolutely guarantee each time we do these changes is that we're bringing something of value and change in our work, and that it's easy enough to adopt, because that's some of your biggest hurdles, right? Is change management. So on a level.
Absolutely. So, and that starts at the beginning, making sure you have the right products, because not all dams understand museums. Not all,
Right.
even collection management systems understand dams, you know, in today's day and age. And then, so Shyam and Alina, I want to throw a slightly different question to you, because we have a bunch of questions around, you know, the third piece in, or third leg of the stool, if you will, you know, when we talk about collections management, digital asset management. Have you thought about integrating the CRM piece in any way? I know, you know, we talk about creating experiences. I would imagine at the further points in your journey, you're going to be thinking about some really tailored experiences to different segments, you know, providing the right content at the right time to the right people in different environments, right? And so I'm curious, have you given any thought to really tailoring to different segments or even individuals down the road?
We have, but I would say that, you know, where we are with our journey right now is we're absolutely looking at the more, I think, basic integration, which is between our
Sure.
digital management system and our collections management system. I think where we would find benefit for integration with DAM and CRM, or our donor management system, is exactly along the lines that you've just suggested. I mean, one of the things that we've spent a bit of time working on in the last 12 months is understanding. So we started off with like very little of born digital programming when the pandemic hit. And in the last 12 months, we've ramped that up enormously because that was the only way that we could really engage with our audiences. And at the beginning of that, it was very much, you know, throwing things against the wall just to see what will stick, right? We were generating a lot of content we did a little bit of planning and thought about like who the audiences were. But as we've been going along with it, one of the things that we have been trying to do is to really fine tune that and more precisely segment those online virtual audiences so that we can more effectively deliver relevant types of digital experiences to them. So yes, absolutely, that would be something that we'd be looking to do as part of our DAM integration.
Yeah, and to echo some of that, certainly integrating with the CRM, that is something that often gets explored. But I would also say, from what we see, this is something that doesn't always take priority just from an integrations perspective. It's something that I'd say more for museums or customers that are more in the space of having a more dedicated in-house team that aren't relying on a lot of outside assistance for those integrations. They oftentimes have more of the resources to start thinking through what that might mean. Oftentimes when it comes to those CRMs and integration, will start with just making sure that teams working out of those that are maintaining relationships, that those are using the right assets, so that everything is aligned and the right documents go out. So that's really just the first step in that type of integration. But what we've seen quite a bit of is just museums really looking more into more robust social media management. So, you know, tailoring experiences there and being more strategic. So we do get more questions that typically come more out of the business space, where those tools are used more heavily. One of our customers, they're maintaining 17 websites and they have very robust social media management all along. But for others, this is a newer idea that we really saw increase quite a bit last year, which I think is quite exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting, and like I said at the outset, to kind of round this all back again, I think the fact that we're even having an event like this, where we're talking about all day, we're talking about DAM specifically for museums. I think the collection management world will take notice to this, about how important this is to so many people, because to be quite honest, they've kind of lagged behind in their connect friendliness, right? You know, their APIs have not been traditionally very strong, but they're getting better, and there are even some vendors out there who are thinking about building a comprehensive solution, you know, of building more DAM functionality into the PIM and bringing that closer together, so that maybe you don't have to do some of the stitching together that we're talking about today. And 5 years from now, 10 years from now, maybe it is a much more integrated solution, and that's encouraging. So we're all in this evolution, we're all in this journey. but it was really great to hear all of your perspectives today. I really want to thank you for that, and thank you for all the so many questions that we got. I'm sorry that we didn't get to more of them, but I will encourage you to please reach out to Denise, reach out to Alina, reach out to Shyam. They'll be happy to talk. Reach out to me. I'm happy to talk as well. If any of you are looking at new technology, I'll be happy to point you in the direction of vendors that I think understand this space, because to be honest, not a ton do in the DAM space. It's not a high priority for them, but it's good to see more and more are starting to pay attention. So thank you all so much for being here today. And thank you to our panelists for sharing your experiences. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Jarrod. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.